All right, welcome back.
Hi, welcome. We're continuing our series on flawed masterpieces.
Yeah, and taking a dive deeper into the hermeneutical methods and practices. And so now we're looking at action items, and we're going into Pastor Brian's sermon on two midwives found in Exodus chapter 1, 15 through 21.
And action items is not a super fancy seminary word. This was actually one of my earliest lessons in Bible college, where one of the most influential dudes in my life, his name is Dr. Bruce Boulogne, he taught us this practice, which was when looking at a passage, look at the verbs, because the verbs are really what the action of theology drives from. And most importantly, look at the verbs of whatever God or Jesus are doing, because there's the passages that we read, whenever God's involved, the story is about him, not about whatever else subsequent thing. And so if we look at the verbs and map those out, there's so much to grow. So to this week in our practice, we're going to encourage you to actually look at the operative verbs that are happening in this passage, because in those it will illuminate some further truths. Let's take a look. So starting at verse 15, we see the Pharaoh actually give an instruction. I'm going to read it to you. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose name was Shaphrah and Puah, when helping the Hebrew women during childbirth and delivery stool, if you see that a baby is born, kill him. But if it's a girl, let her live. I would encourage you, actually, if you have time, map out all the verbs. Otherwise, look at the key ones. What would you say the key verbs are that you see in this passage?
Probably kill.
Excellent.
And let her live.
Perfect. So we have a clear command: kill her, or kill him, let her live, right? Of choosing life and death. And then the midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Operative verbs in that sentence are?
Probably feared God.
Amen. And?
They let the boys live.
Oh, so good. Okay, so which ones are operative, which ones aren't? That's a question that would come up. You may not know that, and it may not be evident like it is in this case, which is fearing God, letting the boys live. So that's why if you have more verbs, that's okay. But when you start mapping out what the action items are here, you begin to get a picture that kind of pulls away from some of the ancillary details into the core idea, which is they didn't fear Pharaoh. They feared God. As a result, they let the boys live. Now what you'll get is you continue to look in this passage, verse 19, the midwives came back and answered Pharaoh because he said, hey, how come you're letting the boys live? And their response?
The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and given birth before the midwives arrive.
Great.
I think they might be lying.
You can get semantical around that, but they did not give him the truth.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with that? Does God condone lying ever? Because it really seems like they lied. The next verse, verse 20. So God was kind to the midwives. Was kind is the operative verb there. And the people increased and became ever more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. It really looks like to me God blesses them, because then that's another verb, as a result of their lying. There's a lot to unpack there, and we're actually going to leave you on a cliffhanger and kind of leave it there. Obviously with the verbs, you see some key things happening, and we would love for you to then take those verbs. Which ones are significant that you see in looking through? We only hit a few of them, and in your groups, we're going to really encourage you to process through what those action items mean for both them in their context, and then once you process through that, well then how would that affect you?
Yeah. Well put. And as you're going through these action items of these key verbs to find out what's actually going on here, because it seems like a wild story, be sure to take what you learned last week and even look at the action items throughout this whole chapter in Exodus 1.
Enjoy.
Good luck.